So first things first, gentlemen, how are you?
Very
Tippity
good.
top, thank you.
Very good to hear. So before we get into the music, I like to start simply. Do you remember the first impressions you had of each other?
Yes, vaguely. So essentially, it kind of leads to how the band started. We were both living in York and going to the open mic nights that happen in York all the time, or they were folk nights or pub acoustic nights or whatever they were called. There was a weird little bubble of people sort of floating around York, diving in and out of all of these sort of sessions that would go on till quite late, and you'd get 3 songs and then the guitar would be passed to someone else. That's how I first heard Conor sing, and I'm pretty sure that's where you probably first heard me play. And Conor was in another band and I was sort of like doing my own stuff at the time. And we were both very complimentary to each other. I think it was outside the Woolpack.
It was, I remember, and I remember thinking, because I like a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, but sometimes I find there's a lot in York, and there's a lot of great, but there's some everywhere that's questionable. And I saw Sam and was like, obviously singer-songwriting, when you're just playing on acoustic, it's hard to hold a crowd's attention if they don't know who you are.
Right.
And I remember watching Sam and just being like, wow, I watched that entire thing, it was amazing. So
did you
I don't
talk?
think I've ever told him that. Maybe I have, I'm not sure.
I'm blushing.
You're all right, you.
Did you talk that night?
Yeah.
We had a cigarette outside and we both interrupted each other while complimenting each other. I seem to remember. This was a while ago. I do remember it quite. I do remember it quite well. But then, as I don't know, it was just like a series of meetings after that in the smoking areas of pubs and bars where we were playing 3 songs each, and like, because all of our songs sound very different when they're whittled down to their very original beginnings. So I think both of us falling in love with each other's music at that, and songwriting and writing in general at that time was sort of led to what's happened since then.
And then for the both of you, was it always a band thing? Because Sam, I have read that you initially started by yourself, then kind of, but did you, and then same for you, but did you have that band feeling, that band sound in mind early on?
Conor was in a different band when we were starting. So Conor was the lead singer and songwriter.
No, that's what I'm saying. Separately, did you want it to be a band because you didn't?
Probably not. It was probably so like because Conor was concentrating on his own stuff and I was concentrating on my stuff. It was, and I'd initially started out as like a sort of singer-songwriter in my own right, I guess. So it had my name on it. My name is Welsh, so it's very difficult to spell. So we sort of like sacked that off after a while. But there was no plan. It was just we wanted to play loads of music together. Our philosophy, I guess, as a band has always been to put the song first, as opposed to cloud it with whatever, like just throwing too much stuff at the wall. We've never wanted to do that. So keeping the song at the forefront. Like if you could name a band track by track after each song, I think we'd kind of do that. It's strange that you have to keep one thing running through it all, but our thing has always been to keep the song at the front, and then the sort of the sound of everything comes next. That's where our pen comes in, you know.
Well, that's like, I remember having that exact conversation because my girlfriend was cutting Sam's hair at my house, and we were chatting about it. I knew we were recording in London some of your solo stuff the next day or like next 2 days later. So I was initially just going to come and play on a couple of songs or what, you know, like, and then we had this. That was where I remember properly talking about saying how egos have to be left to the side and the songs are just always, as Sam just said, the songs should be at the forefront. Right. I would say that's the first time we'd properly spoken about, me and you anyway, while he was getting his hair cut.
Okay. Because I can assume it, and it's all, I'm sure it's impossible to completely do this, but do you then start, in a sense, with a blank slate? Kind of throwing everything out the window and just starting a song with
I guess in a sense. We know...
Because obviously you are you, and
yeah.
That will have
Oh, do you mean the old songs?
No, even if the way you write now.
I think we've got a little more of an idea of what we think works, essentially, but that's ever changing. We'll then, like next month, we'll listen to some folk artist who's using like a bagpipe in a really cool way, and we're like, next album. Like, you know, there's always going to be something that switches it, but hopefully there's one thread that will run through the music. It like I don't know if it happens particularly consciously. I don't know if we're willing that to happen, but we will always leave the song first. The song, the narrative of the lyric, and the feel of that as almost like an acoustic demo version. It is always got to be that passion has got to be at the forefront, and the magic of that has got to be at the forefront. And then we
The rest supports it.
we support it. We paint in the rest of the picture from there as
Right.
as a full band, you know.
With that in mind, then, when you started early on, were you ambitious in a sense, or was it just for fun?
It's always been for joy. It's always definitely we've always just had. The only thing that sort of spurs us on is going, shit, that sounds cool, or oh fuck yeah, keep doing that, and then like you sort of get that weird little buzz and you lose yourself for a bit. That's always at the forefront. Then we've been very lucky to be able to have the option to do this as a career and to carry on working week by week and like winding down our hours working in hospitality or wherever else, and then being able to do it as a band, and then that sort of like felt like a door was opening up, I guess, and or at least, you know, a vague path. But we've always the ability to be able to do this as a job and go back to it constantly is still magical and unbelievable. But I don't know if it was necessarily an aim. It's just something that has happened. But now I can't go back to anything else. I'm rubbish at working in hospitality. Hopefully I can write some good songs, but I drop glasses, I spill coffees, I have accidentally kicked children. I'm Ted, like never hire me, but I'll try and write some nice chords and some melodies and things.
Yeah, I think ambition's a weird one as well, in the sense of it's hard to. I wouldn't say we're ambitious when we started. We particularly overthought anything, but we're ambitious in like how, in the sense of the songs, as in going,
Sure.
putting no limitations on things and trying to write. So ambitious in the writing process, but it's in the long-term plan. I don't think any of us thought of anything really. Just write good songs. That's about it, really.
This is, I suppose, a mean question to ask them, but what song do you think you gotten closest to what you had in mind, or what you wanted to get out of it?
I don't think. Can you ever?
That's the question.
I don't know if you can. Ever.
Probably never
Good answer.
completely.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Probably
Because
never
the goalposts shift all the time, don't they? So it's the constant sort of journey and chasing that.
Yeah.
But no, I can't. I think. I mean, wouldn't you just stop if you think you've done it? Like,
Well, that's true.
Completed it, you know. Like,
But is it then the thrill of the chase, or can it also be very frustrating in a sense, songwriting?
Of course.
both, yeah.
There's no way to write a song. Like there's no like one way that everyone's just like, yeah, now we've got it. It's like but it's always wrong, because then someone else is just going to go, but you can do this, and you're like, oh yeah, of course you can do that.
You hear that a lot, don't you? Where some people say, I have to write like this, and I don't necessarily adhere to it. Like, there's a really good podcast that Sam got me into called Song Exploder on Spotify. That's loads of artists, like from all different genres, talking through their songs, and pretty much the thread between all of it is most of them go, there's not one way. Like, one of them, Big Thief, we were saying they went out on a run when they were going, like, hitting their heads against the wall, like not knowing how to finish a song. Went out on a run, come back, and it's done, you know. And then other people will say, I sat down and in the length of the song, the time the song takes is the time it took to write. So it's whatever.
I think obviously you can think too much about ways to write a song, and you can definitely overthink in writing of any form, and that's probably the biggest obstacle, I'd say. Overthinking. The best art seems to come from the subconscious, when you finally let your mind relax. So that is, I get annoyingly, when frustration disappears is when everything comes easiest. And that's a vicious cycle, I guess. You know, it's like as soon as you start worrying about something not coming, then you're already blocking your own tap.
Because of the way you speak about it now, it reminds me of something you said in another interview where you talked about difference being an artist and a performer or an entertainer, in a sense. And there's one line where it read, and I don't know if this is true because it's on the internet, but you said one time I had that opportunity was there for me.
There was, right?
That opportunity was there for me to be a pop star, quote unquote.
Yeah, I guess. There was a moment for me a few years ago where I guess it could have gone in. Not that there was an open door, like an open goal. I wasn't going to get a #1 single, but there was definitely an opportunity for me to go in a poppier direction, especially under my own name, and I wasn't enjoying the music I was getting back from it. I felt like there wasn't as much of myself in it as I would have wanted, which is fine. And there's lots of people that go down that path, and I'm not saying that is a lesser path to go down. It's just not one I necessarily wanted at that age or now. But it's there was an opportunity a while ago when I had a different manager who was probably thinking of me in a different place to where I was now, and then he started running restaurants, and so he sort of like passed me along to his mate, who gave me the option of whether I wanted to be a solo writer or a band. And all I was listening to at the time was New Order and Joy Division, so I was like, I want to be in a band. I want to be from Manchester, and I want to be in a band. So everything just sort of.
So first part, how is that going?
There was, sorry.
The first part, being from Manchester, how's that going?
I mean, sadly, not great. I can't even do the accent, but Conor can. So I've managed to get Conor. He's not even from Manchester, but he's the closest I could find, and that's where we're going.
No, but because the reason why I ask, because what I find interesting is that there, like you said in the beginning, it's all about the song. It's not about me or what. It's about the song. But that idea of putting your ego to the side, is that a difficult one to do?
Not in, I think, yeah, at points, I guess. But then when you hear back whatever it is that you've achieved, it's like, well, it was worth it, really. I mean, there's a really funny video on YouTube. It's quite harsh, but it's of Ed O'Brien in Radiohead, and of him dancing when Radiohead are playing a lot of other songs. And like, it's them. They've picked the person who's made it is like proper ripping it, but I kind of have a lot of respect for it, because obviously they have so many songs and they've done it over so many gigs, made this video. But the songs he doesn't even play on. That's not bad, it's not. Sure. It's better that than him rip a guitar solo in the middle of a heartbreaking lyric, isn't it? So.
Yeah, we do. There's that How Music Works book by David Byrne, which I consider a Bible in some ways. Great. And he was like, one of the first Talking Heads rules was no guitar solos, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Hey, there's room for them in some sorts of music, but I don't know if our music has ever been one for those sort of like. Yeah. I mean, there is that in some of our music, but maybe not quite to the Slash degree.
Yeah. No, I think, and you get your chance in a way to get your ego fed performing, as Sam was saying in that interview you were quoting. They're separate things. So the songwriting process, you put it aside, put it all on stage when you're playing, because that's what you've got to have an element of ego to get on stage. And
art is selfish. Isn't it? Like the fact that we're going on stage, or the fact that we're releasing an album, or releasing any music at all, is in itself you going, I think what I've created is so great that I'm going to put it out there for everyone to listen. What do you think about that? It is very selfish in itself, and you can keep going down that path. But I don't know. It just seems. You shouldn't think about it. If you're thinking about how egotistical you're being, then you're probably going about it the wrong way. If you're necessarily trying to avoid it, you're probably going the wrong way. It needs to come. I don't know. I just always thought the best art comes naturally. But,
like you say, probably not overthinking it is the wisest kind of way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Switching off is the best way.
It's a very difficult thing to do, though. At least I find. But anyways. So I want to get into the music a little bit more, because you have a couple of new songs out. And so can I assume that this is kind of a march towards an album?
Yeah.
And then first track is Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
There's one line which I find really interesting. I live in the moment, it's just not this one.
Yeah, I like
that's one of my favourites, for sure.
Where did that line come from?
My mum's piano. Okay. Came from switching my brain off again. That one is about a character. That song went through a few different changes. It initially started out as a man in a band on a 10-year anniversary tour, who's just sort of like staring at himself in the mirror, realising that everything that he used to be has sort of crumbled away in front of him. The original opening line of that song, I was also quite proud of that, was "A decade decays." One day we're going to re-record it, we're going to like redo the old version of that, because we went in a slightly different direction and made it a little more personable. But that one is essentially about, it's about the same thing, it's just set in a little more of a relatable situation, I guess. It's a person coming back to their hometown and everything's changed. Everyone has changed, everyone around him has changed. So it's that one guy stuck in the past. I was worried a little while ago that I write too many songs about people stuck in the past, and I think that is definitely true of my songwriting. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, it just means that's definitely lingering when I try and switch the thinking part of my brain off. So I don't know how true that line is to myself, but it might just be me speaking, I'm not sure.
But there's something interesting about that idea, because one thing I hear from a lot of musicians, especially those who have been in the game for a while, is that when they go on tour, it kind of feels like and they come back, like it feels like where they're from has changed. Like they can relate to who they were before.
Right.
They went on tours for a couple of years, and so have you noticed something like that already, where you're away from home for quite a bit, and then you kind of, it takes a while to settle back in?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've been away long enough for it to affect a hometown, but
I'd say with you, it's surely more.
yeah, so I'm not from York originally. I'm not from Yorkshire. I'm from Essex originally. So any time I go back, there's another 10 different phone shops on the high street from Colchester.
Yeah, sorry.
That's the one. Oh, sick! You got it written down. So I'm from Colchester originally. So my home place has been sort of displaced, and I also grew up in Scotland, and I grew up in another part of Essex, and I was born in Hertfordshire. It's difficult to find a hometown, but the place where I grew up and went to school and stuff like that, that place always changes every time I go back, and people have passed away, or they've moved away, or they've changed, or people have changed their hair, or people identify as different genders and different sexualities and stuff like that, and the stuff you grew up with, and it's just letting time sort of flow by you, and it making all these changes and things like that. I've always found it interesting. It was going to be the theme for the album at one point, and there is a lot of it on the album. There's another song called Sweet Fading Silver, which is definitely about that, which is about a car. And yeah, it's a long song, you'll hear it.
There is more to it than it just being.
We're just really aiming for that car advert that's going to make the second album, the Ford Kaya or something, I don't know cars.
But then musically, how do you, because you say you try not to, you try to treat every song for what it is and not kind of lump it together. So when you're working on an album, does that become part of kind of, do you think about the thread through it?
Definitely. There's both a musical and a narrative thread in these. Sometimes we'll do shows which have a narrative thread throughout the show, which is both separate and entwining the lyrical thread of the particular songs. You can sort of, when the song is written, I try and consider each song a separate entity, but there will usually be a way to sort of find a thread between all the songs, almost like short stories in a longer book, or chapters in a book, or anything like that. Almost like strange, like verses in a Bob Dylan song, where you never really know where it's going to go, but then he ties it all together strangely. I've always found that fascinating. I think we've managed to make the album cohesive, at least. There's sort of a musical and hopefully dramatic thread throughout the album, and the characters within the songs relate to each other, though they're not all the same people. I'd always imagined it almost like, if you're looking at a hotel, you see all those weird little windows on the side like that, and you see little lights flicker on and off. Sort of what this album is doing. You're seeing into strange little rooms, and you're either knowing or working out what each person's different story is.
Final question then, and I have to try, do you have an album title yet?
No. I don't know what it's going to be. That maybe something to do with hotels. We've got a song about hotels as well. I find hotels very lonely, unique, romantic and isolating places, so maybe it's going to be something to do with that. But as of yet, we don't have an album title for it, but we may lift something from the song Sweet Fading Silver, which is probably one of the more cohesive songs on the record, which is about things evolving through time and things changing and never quite being able to grip onto one thing, or gripping onto one thing too hard rather. So We don't have a name yet, but
You
we've
got
got
any
a
suggestions?
If you've got any suggestions, yeah.
Something with hotel? I'll get back to you.
Great, thank you very much.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for
Nice
your time.
one.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you, man.
All right.
That was great, man.
Cheers,
thank
yeah,
you.
really
Man,
enjoyed
thank you
it.
so much.
I've
That's
watched
like
loads of these as well.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
cool.
love them. Yeah, I've
It's
seen
good.
tons
It's
of them.
always nice to hear.